Good evening. I'm Scott Black, Managing Director of Tulsa Ballet. It is my pleasure to welcome you this evening to our Studio K Theater here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We've got a great crowd here this evening, and we are also live streaming around the world. So special thanks to HuffPost for allowing us to share this event with their followers. Those of you joining us online, please feel free to submit your questions or comments via the live stream. Tonight's event is sponsored by a gift from the Charles and Lynn Schusterman Family Foundation and a gift from Marianne and John Bumgarner in memory of Cherine Janzen, and we thank them for their support. As you saw from our introductory video, we are proud of our company and our rich history. Now in its 61st season, Tulsa Ballet continues bringing the world to Tulsa and taking Tulsa to the world with rave reviews. And we have such tremendous support right here at home, which is why it's now my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. G.T. Bynum, Mayor of Tulsa.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being here tonight. You know, our culture as a city is one that uses the resources of the West to seek out the best that the world has to offer and then express it through art here in Tulsa. You see that in our concert arena, the BOK Center, that is ranked as the Arena of the Year this year. You see that at the Gilcrease Museum, the greatest collection of Western art anywhere in the world, home to everything from Native American artifacts and Benjamin Franklin's copy of the Declaration of Independence to now Bob Dylan's archive. You see that in Philbrook Museum and the Italianate architecture there, and you see that coming online next year in the Gathering Place, the greatest public park gift in the history of the United States of America that's coming in on the eastern shore of the Arkansas River here in our city. These are all things that we have gone out and found the best that the world has to offer and brought them here to Tulsa. But the great thing about Tulsa Ballet is that Tulsa Ballet takes the best that Tulsa has to offer and takes it out to the rest of the world. It's been regarded, Tulsa Ballet has been, as one of the most important and best theater companies, ballet companies in the world. And that is something that is incredibly important to our community and special to us. And so I'm thankful that you're here tonight. You're going to learn more about the important work that's being done here at Tulsa Ballet. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mayor Bynum. Tonight's panel discussion coincides with Tulsa Ballet's Creations in Studio K series. Now in its 11th season, Studio K was created for the purpose of creating new works here in Tulsa to be shared with the rest of the world. This year, 3 pieces, all created by some of the world's top women choreographers, will have their debut right here in Studio K next week. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator for this evening. She is a journalist and scholar of popular culture from Sydney, Australia. Now based in New York City, she is the senior front page editor at HuffPost. Her writing about politics and popular culture has been published in the Washington Post, the Atlantic, the New York Times, and many other outlets in the US, the UK, and France. Please welcome Chloe Angyal.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Mayor Bynum. And thank you to Marcello and the entire Tulsa Ballet team who have worked so hard to put together this dance program and this evening that we're about to enjoy together. I was able to watch a dress rehearsal this morning, and I can promise that those of you who are going to come see the performance... Oh, did we not get a cell phone warning? All right, everyone take a moment, turn your cell phones off. You got a 5-second grace period. Everyone good? Okay. As I was saying, I was able to see a dress rehearsal this morning, and for those of you who are going to be watching it here, for those of you who are going to be seeing it when it goes out on tour, this is a fantastic program, and I promise you're in for a real treat. It's such an honor for me to be here this evening. It's an honor for me to get to share the stage with our 4 panelists this evening. And to those of you who are joining us by live stream, wherever in the world you are, welcome. And I want to encourage you to send us your questions so that we can answer them when the Q&A opens up later in the evening. I'm hoping we really get a chance tonight to dig into some of the big, interesting, meaty questions about gender and ballet. But in order to do that, we should meet our panelists. So let's meet our panelists. The first one is Amy Brandt. Amy has been the editor-in-chief of Pointe Magazine since 2014, following a 19-year Following a 19-year dance career, before joining Pointe, she was an associate editor at Dance Teacher and Dance Magazine. She danced professionally with the Milwaukee Ballet and the Suzanne Farrell Ballet, among others. And she performed in honor of Ms. Farrell at the 2005 Kennedy Center Honors. Please welcome Amy. Next, we're joined by Young-Soon Hu. She trained at the Princess Grace Academy in Monte Carlo and danced with Frankfurt Ballet, Zurich Ballet, Basel Ballet, and Deutsche Oper am Rheinland Düsseldorf, where she also served as the company's ballet mistress. She's been choreographing since 2001 and has created and set her works on companies around the world, including the Queensland Ballet in my home country of Australia, the National Ballet of Korea, and Augsburg Ballet in Germany. In total, she has created 38 full-length and short pieces. In 2015, her new version of Romeo and Juliet received the Theatre Prize as Best Piece of the Year in Augsburg. This is her 5th time being invited to Tulsa Ballet, and the work that you're going to see next week, If, is her 4th creation for the company. Please welcome Young-Soon Hu. Next, Annabelle Lopez Ochoa. Annabelle has been choreographing since 2003 and has created works for more than 40 companies around the world, such as the Scapino Ballet, where she was a soloist during her 12-year dance career, Dutch National Ballet, Joffrey Ballet, English National Ballet, Ballet Black, and New York City Ballet. She has been nominated for and won numerous awards, including a nomination for an Olivier Award for her production of A Streetcar Named Desire, and an Olivier win for a program in which her recent work, Broken Wings, was included. Please welcome Annabelle Lopez Ochoa. And last but not least, Helen Pickett. Helen performed with William Forsythe's Ballet Frankfurt for over a decade and has been choreographing since 2002. She's created over 35 ballets in the US and Europe. She was resident choreographer at Atlanta Ballet from 2012 to 2017 and has created works for Boston Ballet, Washington Ballet, Dance Theatre of Harlem, and Pennsylvania Ballet. Like Annabelle, she was awarded a fellowship from the New York City Ballet's New York Choreographic Institute and a residency at Jacob's Pillow. She's also a teacher and has created a choreographic intensive for college-age choreographers. And she's currently a distinguished visiting artist at University of North Carolina School for the Arts. Please welcome our 4th and final panelist, Helen Pickett. All right. This is another opportunity to put your phones on silent if you need one. All right. Well, we're all here because we all agree that... Is my mic on? Good? Good? Okay. We're all here because we all agree that ballet is special in many ways, as a dance form, as an art form, as a career path. It is unique in many senses, and ballet dancers are set apart from lots of other artists, lots of other dancers in many ways. But one thing that ballet has in common with lots of other industries, one way in which ballet is not special, is that it is also suffering from an underrepresentation of women in seats of creative power. The symbol of ballet is undeniably a woman. We're joined by plenty of male dancers and male fans of ballet here tonight, but when you think about ballet, you think about a woman, you think about femininity. So the symbol of ballet is undeniably a woman, but across the country and the world, women are dramatically less likely to be creating works that dancers are actually performing. And the figures who loom largest in American ballet choreography are almost to a one men. And as other industries and art forms have started to ask questions about the challenges that women face in creating and leading, I'm pleased to say that ballet has begun to ask those same questions and face those same challenges. For those of you who aren't familiar with the back and forth debate over this particular problem, the debate about why there are fewer opportunities for women ballet choreographers has been simmering for about a decade, and every couple of years it rises to an almost boil. The most recent hot moment happened a few months ago when 3 men who were being featured by New York City Ballet, Justin Peck, Christopher Wheeldon, and Alexei Radmansky, were asked by a journalist about what some might call the overrepresentation of men. What we call the underrepresentation of women, we could also call the overrepresentation of men. They were asked about that problem in their field, and their answers left a lot of people asking about concrete solutions and real progress. I think it's really important to ask the men who dominate this field what they plan to do to make it a more equitable and more representative place, more representative of who does ballet, who watches ballet, who cares about ballet. Just like I think it's important to ask male CEOs what they plan to do to make their fields more representative of the world we actually live in. But this evening, we have a chance to hear from 3 women who are making it work, who are making great work, and who can offer us some real insight into what it's like to be a woman in this particular, very special art industry. So I want to start with a question for all of you, since you were all professional dancers. Did you dance work by women when you were training and when you were performing? Did you notice a gender imbalance when you looked at the names of the people whose work you were performing? And if you did notice it, did it bother you? Did it shape your sense of possibility? We'll start with Helen, and we'll come down the line.
Well, I worked with one choreographer primarily, William Forsythe. That's really was the bulk of our repertoire. But we did do work by Laura Dean and Susan Marshall while I was in the company. And toward the end of the time I was in the company, we also had showcases for dancers, and I danced in 2 pieces of fellow colleagues. Regina van Berkel, who's from Holland, and Francesca Harper, who's a friend in New York City. I didn't notice it at the time, to tell you the truth, not at all. And I didn't treat it differently that it was Susan Marshall or Laura Dean. It wasn't a difference for me to do their work as opposed to doing Bill's work or Ohad's work. And that's really, at that time, that was my frame of mind. It was just, another choreographer to experience and to get into and understand. So, truthfully, at that time I didn't notice. Yeah.
Annabelle, what about you?
I worked in 4 different companies, and in the 4 companies I worked with women. In one company, Heidelberg, the director was a choreographer, and her name was Liz King. So I did a lot of her work, and in Jazzix, Neil Verdon was the resident choreographer. So during my entire career as a dancer, I collaborated with women.
Great. What about you?
I also worked in 4 different companies, and actually, when I hear this question, I have only worked with 1 female choreographer, actually Judith Jamieson from Elvin Ailey. She came to Basel Ballet Company. She created 3 pieces for the company. I was very lucky to work with her. I learned so much from her. But actually, 1 choreographer, female choreographer I worked with.
And Amy, what about you?
I actually went and looked through my dance resume this evening to count. I believe I worked with a total of 5 over the course of my career. At Milwaukee Ballet, we worked with Catherine Posen, who has a modern dance background, but she started choreographing for Pointe work later in her career. And she actually used to come and work with us about once a year. So I worked with her quite a bit, both at Milwaukee Ballet and as a freelance dancer in New York City. We also worked with Lisa de Robert a lot in Milwaukee, and a choreographer from Los Angeles named Laura Gornstein Miller. And then once I moved to New York City and was freelancing with different choreographers, I worked with two. I worked with Deborah Losi, who is a choreographer, also has moved more from ballet into modern dance now. If you were to look her up now, she's very much modern dance choreographer. And Diane Coburn-Bruning, who has a small company called Chamber Dance Project, which is now based in DC. So I think I didn't notice the gender imbalance in choreography. I noticed it more in directors at the time, but I didn't notice it with choreography until I worked with Laura Gornstein-Miller, and the ballet that she created for us was called The Quickening, and it was about being pregnant. And to do a ballet that was very female-centered, where the subject was about being a woman, in essence. I think that was probably the first time where I noticed, like, oh, you know, we don't get to do ballets like this very often. And
I wonder why that is. Yeah.
Yeah. And then after that, you know, I worked for a woman. I worked under a woman as director under Suzanne Farrell for 10 years. So,
Okay.
But yeah, the vast majority of ballets I danced were created by men.
I want to ask a really 101 kind of question about women and choreography, which is, who cares? Why does it matter? What difference does it make? Why does it matter to you that women have an equal opportunity to make dances?
I think we represent half of the population. So just to, you know, the perspective of what we do, you know, the way we make duets, the way we portray women in narrative work, I think that is interesting for an audience to see that, to witness it, to maybe compare with how, you know, a man did their Giselle, and what a woman, how would she put Giselle on stage. I think that's why they should have a platform.
Helen, what about you?
I say, why not? I mean, it is the simple fact of that, you know, we do comprise half of the world, and the solo status in any profession is never a good place to be, where you're one representative among, because it's a pressure that is felt, that is not felt by perhaps the 10 other people in the room. Let's say they're men, and then there's one woman. This is going to be a situation where more eyes are focused on the person that is different, and that is across the board. It doesn't have to be men or women. It can be in many different iterations, and you know, again, I come back to the idea of inclusivity rather than exclusivity, and inclusivity always helps the world. You know, it's the positive approach to how we're going to encompass each other, and again, I come back to the why not question.
So I want to pick up on something that you said about feeling like you are being watched more closely, and feeling like you're a representative for what among ballet choreographers is a minority group, for lack of a better term, and feeling like, do any of you feel like you are carrying other women on your shoulders? Like if you make a mistake, then that's going to have ripple effects for other women?
Not really.
I hope not with mistakes. I hope I can be a role model for these young girls who you know, are seeing more female choreographers having, you know, a voice out there. So yes, I feel like, you know, that is my that is the pressure that I feel. I hope I do it well for them. You know, in 20 years, it won't be a discussion anymore.
Right. Annabelle, we were talking yesterday, and you said that failure is inevitable. You're going to make some bad ballets, you're going to make some great ballets, but the failure is...
I'm very good at it.
Yes. But the failure is how you learn. So if you are being sort of watched extra closely and are afraid of failing, does that have an impact on your artistic growth?
I think you have to get to the point as a human being, or let's say as an artist, I think of just saying failure is a part of what you're going to do if you're putting yourself out there and you're putting your voice out there. It is the way to learn. And I saw this great documentary on the plane coming down on my ride to Tulsa, and it was about comedians. And the whole thing was about living through the first boo, like the first time you really bomb. And they spoke, it was painful. They interviewed 10 or 15 really well-known comedians, and they all talked about the pain of that and carrying that and saying, that is what happened, but I love what I'm doing and I can't imagine anything else. So I'm going to learn from that failure. I'm going to hold my head high and say, that was me. I was the failure. I was the second piece that you didn't like. And that's par for the course.
Yeah. She is the second piece you are going to like. It's really good.
That wasn't a setup. Wow. Hello, Mr. Freud. Okay. But it is those failures. And within every piece, even if it's a stinky mess, there's always going to be something, a kernel you can take to the next piece. That's, it's...
But it's true that there's a pressure for any young choreographer to have a good review, because you have this one opportunity and a good review might open doors.
That's right.
Further down the career,
you can take more risk.
Yes, you can take more risk. It's a bad piece, but maybe there's two that will follow.
Yeah.
And for me, because I need to apply for a visa, good reviews are helping me during applications.
What about you, Janzen?
For me, I think every time when I make a piece, and then I sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good. But I think it's a learning process for me. Every time I learn from what I did, and I try to do better next time. So I think I'm learning. I will be learning until forever. Yeah, then we make a better balance. And
I'm really tempted to take a leaf out of that documentary's book and ask you to share with us one time or the first time that you remember failing and learning something from it. I'm gonna make this an optional question because we are in front of a relatively large audience, so it's an optional question. But Annabelle, do you want to?
Yeah, I'm not ashamed of. So I started with the Scarcity Ballet with the yearly workshop, and my director picked on it, and he said, "Okay, I'm going to give you an opportunity to make a piece for the company." I was 27 years old, so I did, and he said, "Well, you cannot choose your cast, so all the dancers that are not used in the other ballets are going to be your dancers." So that was the start, and I did not have, a costume designer, and I was breaking up with the composer. That was my fiance at the time. So everything together made that the piece was not my best piece. But, I was happy every day with every, little step we made towards being a better piece. And so the day of the general came. The director watched it. The next day I had to go to the office, and he said, "I am sorry to tell you, but I will cancel your piece." And that was the day before the premiere.
Oy.
And so that's how I started my career as a choreographer. It never happened again after that.
So just get it out of the way.
Get it out of the way. That's, you work 5 weeks on something, and it's just not good enough to be presented. And then he gave me another opportunity 6 months later.
What about you, Helen?
My first review started, "I know we should support female choreographers, but..." I was like, "Welcome and thank you."
First of all, I wish that person's editor had cut that. But second of all, ouch.
Yeah.
Did it get any better from there?
No. You mean the review? Oh no, the review did not get better.
Wow. So I'm curious. I mean, we're all here because you're in a program that is bringing together women to make work. We're on a panel about women choreography. How often do you get talked about in the press, or even among your fellow choreographers, as a woman choreographer? And how often do you just get called a choreographer?
That's true. That's a good. Yes. Well, I'm very often alone with men, surrounded by men, so I'm the female choreographer of the evening.
Same.
That's your experience as well?
Yes.
How often are you the only woman in the room? Or the only woman choreographer?
Many triple bills. Most of the time I had 2 male choreographers and me. But I have to say, in Europe, I had many times with the 3 female choreographers together. and I shared one double bill with another female choreographer. I had many chances to work with female choreographers together, and now I have these two great female choreographers here.
Yeah, the contemporary world has
Yeah.
a lot more female choreographers.
And the modern
history.
dance world.
Yeah. And I think that's partly by design. I think a lot of women choreographers look at ballet and say, that's a really hard road. Why don't I take a slightly easier road where there are going to be more opportunities for me to make work, to do work? I want to return to the question of Europe in a second, but Amy, I want to ask you, what do your readers think about this problem? I know Pointe has done plenty of coverage over the last couple of years.
Quite a bit. I think it depends on the age group, quite honestly. I'm not sure. So many of our readers are in high school. They're very serious ballet students. They desperately want to become professional dancers. I'm not sure if they're thinking ahead towards directing, choreographing life after physical dancing. I've had a few instances where I've been in a room with young dancers and I can tell they're not thinking about it. So, and then once they become professional dancers or they go away to college, the conversation starts, and I think that's when they start to realize that there is this imbalance. I can't be completely sure, but just based on the feedback I have received, it tends to be more from the older spectrum of our readers who are concerned than from the younger spectrum. So
why is it that you think what is it that they're concerned about? Is it future career opportunities, or is it just, hey, we would like to dance something different?
I don't know. I don't think the majority of people who have commented on our Facebook page or have emailed me, some are concerned that they themselves as a choreographer won't be able to move ahead. But others, I think, are just concerned in general that there's an imbalance and that it should be fixed.
So speaking of younger ballet students, and I think we have some in the audience, and I know we have some watching at the moment, Ashley Bowder, who's a principal at New York City Ballet and has recently moved into choreographing and also into artistic directing, which is also a fairly male-dominated space. She thinks that the pipeline of women choreographers, the imbalance starts at a very young age. One of the things that she proposed was that because there are so many girls who do ballet and relatively so few boys, that the boys who do ballet are given a much longer leash. They're given much more room to be creative and often to misbehave or to behave differently in class, whereas the women, the girls, because there are so many of them and they're competing at the same number of spots, that they're expected to be much more obedient and to stay within the lines much more than the boys are, in part because some teachers will do anything to keep boys in the class, right? There are so few of them, anything to keep them from doing ballet because there are so many barriers to them continuing ballet as they age, particularly as they become teenagers. And so what Ashley Bowder was suggesting is that training, that behavioral training, has real effects down the road when the boys have spent their young lives being given permission to be creative and to think outside the box, and the girls have been taught to follow orders, basically. What do you think of that?
I have to not agree with that, because in my school at the Royal Ballet of Flanders for 7 years, I choreographed every year for the show that we were making, and we were 2 girls always choreographing, and the boys were just happy to do our choreography and not think. So I don't know, I think in classical ballet why there are not so many choreographers is because of the hierarchy within the company. And I think a young trainee, a girl comes in and her dream is to become that principal ballerina, to dance Giselle or whatever, to be the muse of someone. And so that's when the focus is different as to the guy. Well, if you're tall enough, you'll get a partnering role pretty quicker than the woman, doing Giselle. So that's where the imbalance starts for me, I think, because it did not happen to me that way. But.
Yeah, I think that's great. I don't think that's very often actually in a school situation. In colleges, I do. I think that's similar in the college arena in this country. But I think that it also has to do with example. So if you are constantly seeing a repertoire that is, the choreographers are male, you know, that is how we learn also as children. You know, our parents are our first, we're learning from them. And then so you constantly see male choreographers, and I think for young boys, and it's like, I can do that too. And I think that's the beautiful thing also about this program, but also that there are at least one woman on every triple bill, that then there are going to be the examples and the young women that say, oh, there's a female choreographer, I want to do that too. I had a friend, an African-American friend, who was actually in college as a football player. He was on a football scholarship. And the Dance Theater of Harlem came to Indiana University, I believe, where he was a footballer. And he saw it for the first time. And the example was there. And he's like, I want to do that. And he did it.
To be a choreographer?
No, he became a ballet dancer. But he saw the example. And I think that's an important thing to keep remembering, that as long as we're here, we're doing our job. We are. The setup is right here. The setup is here. And you know, you had the setup in school, which was great. You know?
Yeah, because our school and our company was founded by Jeanne Brabants, and she was and a choreographer and a director, and she taught me my first choreography class at the age of 16. So maybe that's why I never saw my gender as something that would stop me at some point.
Youngsun, what about you? What was your school experience like?
I'm not my school experience, but I'm also a teacher. I'm teaching at the school which belongs to the Tulsa Ballet Company. And I teach from 6 years old until 17 years old students. And I have, like in class, I have like 18 girls and I have like 2 boys in class. And like secondary, we have like 16 girls and 4 boys. Then it's like, wow, a lot of boys, I have to say. And I give them like improvisation class for them because she thinks it has to grow up from this childhood. And that I give them all same chance, or the boys or the girls, not separated, because boys, as is special, that I give more chance to them to do, you know, the more improvisation. So everybody gets the same chance to do it. And yeah, I don't really agree that what she said, that is because the boys are more taken care of. That's why they are more creative. That's that, and I don't agree with that.
Yeah. Yes. What about you? What was your ballet school experience? Did you see that dynamic in your ballet school?
Well, let's see. I had at my hometown school, for a short while there was one guy in my class, and then he graduated, and then I had another guy in my class. So there was at one time there was one guy, and I would say they weren't allowed to misbehave, or you know, that I don't see that where you know, but what I do see and where I do maybe can make a connection is that, you know, at least in America, because it is so rare for a young boy to want to be a ballet dancer and to come to class, that there is a difference in treatment in terms of, you know, they'll be on full scholarship or things like that. I mean, there are programs, men's programs, where they're free for 2 years, you know, at a time or something. And so as a female student, automatically there is that gender difference, just based on gender, there's this special treatment. That could perhaps lead to, you know, differences in confidence level, you know. But, and also just as an example, you know, it's just much more competitive as a young girl in ballet. And just as an example, I'll share, we both, this boy and I, went and auditioned for the School of American Ballet summer program, and I got my letter and I got in, and I was like turning cartwheels. I was so excited. No scholarship, nothing, whatever, but I got in. And I was so excited. I ran and told my teacher. And I remember talking to my classmate, and he was annoyed because he had only gotten a partial scholarship. And so, you know, and he had all these other choices, full rides to other summer programs. So there's like an instant negotiation. They have more negotiating power from a very young age. So that's a difference there with like the gender imbalance. That starts very young. As far as any type of improvisation or choreography or composition coursework, I never had any as a student or even as a professional dancer. I didn't have those opportunities.
Okay. I want to find out if either of you two did, but I also, Annabelle, would you mind telling them the story of how you choreographed for the first time when you were 11?
Oh, yeah. So I didn't know the word choreography. I didn't even know it was a profession. I was just in dance school, 11 years old. And it was the day before the Christmas break. And so the teacher came in and we ran to our bars because, you know, you want to have the skinny mirror. Some mirrors make you fat, some skinny. So we ran as we saw her. And she was like, no, today we're not going to do class. Today I'm going to have coffee for an hour and I will leave you here with the pianist. And then you'll go 2 by 2 and you'll make something. And she left. And so we heard that music over and over again and we created, you know, with 2 by 2 something. And then we presented 8 versions of that 1 minute of music. And that was the best hour of my life up till then, and that's why I knew I'm going to be a choreographer. Just, you know, you create a new reality, time does not exist, and then suddenly, yeah. There's
so
something.
any dance teachers out there, just leave. Just leave and it'll happen. Did either of you take composition classes when you were training? No?
But I do think, you know, coming back to my teacher, I do think that we can nurture this young student because I just did I gave a workshop at the Ballet of Flanders School back in April, and there were 14 girls who enrolled and 1 boy. And I asked them, who wants to be a choreographer? And they all raised their hands. I was like, okay. So as we were, you know, choreographing, I was teaching a phrase. I had to do something with the phrase. I had to come up with something. And then I said, let's talk about what you just saw. And they all talk like this. I'm like, what's going on with your voice? I mean, in the corridor, you were just talking like a normal person now in front of me. So you have to nurture them to also use their voice because as a choreographer, you have to be able to express and convey your ideas through your voice. And unfortunately, as a ballerina, you just learn to, you know, express yourself, you know, with the piano, so you don't speak, and with your body and your movements. So we have to nurture that. We have to educate them to also use their voice because they're going to need it.
Yeah. Helen, can you tell us a little bit about your choreography intensive, how you're nurturing young voices that way?
It's called Choreographic Essentials, and it's for college-age kids. So it's a week-long intensive, and it's an all-day thing. So it starts with a ballet class. I teach an improv class, and then there are 3 to 4 hours of studio work. And the stipulations, I give them, 8 choices of music that they have to choose before coming. They also have to write a paper, a position paper, on what they're going to create, and they have to turn all of this into me before the course even starts. And then the first day, they are usually involved in 3 pieces of choreography, and they're responsible for 1 piece, for making 1 piece. And we divvy up the time, so they can have about 3 minutes to make, plus being a part of 3, sometimes 4 other pieces. And then there's a showing on the 6th day. And to get people to collaborate, so to be the person that takes the information and to be the person that gives the information. And to see both sides of the room is very interesting for most of the people that get involved, because a lot of the coaching that I do within these days is teaching people how to coach. Because, you know, the steps are one facet, but how you get a person to show themselves on stage, how you instill trust, and how you give power back to the dancer in the room as the person in the front of the room, and then the collaboration of the people that are a part of the piece, and the symbiosis of that, and to learn how to be a good leader and be comfortable with power is a very tricky situation. And to instill that in a young person, and to the mirror's held up because they're being directed, and they have to direct. And Yeah, I found that too, about using the voice. It's very interesting, and it's different in the ballet world than it is in other worlds. I find, you know, to be able to really to have a resonant voice and to be heard is an art unto itself. And it's a great experience. I really enjoy teaching it. But like from the time I was this big, like you speak about your experience, I was directing people where to move. My poor grandfather, the plays he had to be in, you know, and you know, so I think that, again, if the opportunity is there and your teacher leaving the room, it's you know, if even in this situation you say, well, what do you think the step should, how can that step look? What is that going to feel better this way? Why don't you try it? It's amazing what it does. It's just, you know, it's so easy to share the space. Collaboration is such a beautiful place to be in, and I do think. I mean, I only know the perspective of the female gay. I mean, this is the only perspective I know. But I wonder sometimes if it's easier for women to share a space in the room. I don't know. I haven't seen it otherwise, but you know, I don't know if it's different to work for us. I guess we would have to ask. It's a good study.
Was there a time when any of you felt uncomfortable holding that power that Helen is talking about, the power of standing in front of the room and telling people what to do? And
at the very beginning, when I was 30 years old, I was sometimes younger than the dancers in front of me. And because I'm a woman, and I probably looked better then, but I had men flirting with me, my dancers, and that was really awkward. Because I was like, wait a minute, I'm asking you this, and then suddenly you're like, hey, babe, what's going on here? So that was like a power position thing that was, you know, weird. But with age, that kind of went away. Bit of wrinkles helps.
But what's weird, I was teaching this workshop at a university last year, and a kid who was 17, I gave him a correction. He was like this. I was like, did you just hit me? I was like, not cool. Like,
wow. Young Soon, anyone winked at you lately?
Everywhere.
ah, yes. Yes, yes, yes.
That is the right answer.
Yes, they do.
This is the right answer.
That's right,
In a professional context?
Yes.
All right. Was there ever a moment where you felt uncomfortable standing at the front of the room like that?
As I said, like Annabelle, like some dancers were older than me. Then it's just a little difficult situation. But they're always good dancers. There are some dancers, they are arrogant, you say. Yeah. So there are some moments like that, and it's a little bit difficult, but I have a very deep voice. I talk to them straight to them. I look at their eyes, and I say, well, I'm here to work with you. So if you are professional, I will be professional with you. So that's why I work with the dancers. Give and take. I'm good, you're good, we're all good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're all professionals.
Yes.
And
no.
And I'm not going out for a drink with you.
No.
I want to return to the point that Annabelle, or that Young Soon was making about Europe. You've all choreographed in Europe. 2 of you are based there.
Yes.
And it sounds like, given your impressive resumes, it sounds like there are more opportunities, or at least different opportunities in Europe than in the US. Would you say that that's true?
They're more contemporary companies.
Many.
So there's less hierarchy within the companies. So that's the difference. And I started with contemporary companies, and then slowly went my way to classical companies. But
there are many small companies in Germany,
Yeah.
for example. Like every city has a companies, and there's all of them has like triple bills, and they don't. It doesn't matter if it's a male choreographer or female choreographer. If director likes your work, you're invited.
Yeah.
So that's it. There's no gender, anything imbalance.
like what Marcello does. I mean,
Yeah.
he's invited you 4 times. It's
Actually, there's no. I never felt something is because I'm female choreographer, I have a problem. Never.
So what do you think they're doing differently Is it an attitudinal difference? Like, what are they doing differently that the US can learn from? And are there any mistakes that they make that the US should not replicate?
The directors nurture young talent, maybe because the subvention comes from the state and they don't have to raise money. So, you know, if there's not a good ticket sale because you have an unknown name of a choreographer, it's not so bad at that time. You know, you're supposed to nurture the future. So you put two big names and then somebody that is unknown. And sometimes it gets canceled, you know.
Just that one time. Just that one time.
Just that one time. So I think that there's more pressure here for the directors that they have to sell tickets because it's part of their revenue. So that's maybe why.
So the answer is better funding for the arts in the US.
The funding, I mean, But like, you know, what Marcello is doing, and there's more and more like second companies affiliated to a company, and to give, you know, that young woman or anybody, young choreographer a chance with this young company. And, you know, so they have to practice. It's a craft. Yeah. And sometimes work are good on small platforms and not immediately, you know, at the Kennedy Center. Yeah. So that's where we should start. And I think that's the role of the directors.
I want to ask about that exact phenomenon because I was talking to a now retired ballerina a couple of weeks ago, and she was saying, you know, I think it's great that these companies recognize that there is an imbalance and they're working to correct it. And in their rush to correct it, they may be elevating not just young, but young and inexperienced choreographers to a platform that they're not ready for. While there are plenty of experienced, somewhat older women choreographers who could really. Okay, Helen wants to say something. All right. So I'm gonna level with you. Helen made a pact not to drop any F-bombs this evening. She dropped a bunch of them backstage to avoid bringing them onto the stage with her.
I never said that.
Helen, do you want to answer this question?
Why do you say that? Well, I take a little bit of. I think that's a bit of a double standard because there are plenty of young, unexperienced male choreographers that are given a chance. So why not give young female inexperienced choreographers a chance? That's basically all that spasm was about right there. That's it.
Fair enough. And anyone else? Any other spasms to contribute to the conversation?
No, I mean, what I heard from a choreographer that started at New York City Ballet, because she was a dancer there, is that for some reason she made 4 pieces for the company in the past, but, you know, the other companies didn't open their doors to her like they're opening to their male choreographers. And she feels that maybe her own director didn't pick up the phone and say, hey, she's really good, you should check her out. You know, that's maybe the difference, that sometimes it stagnates. You're giving a chance, but it just doesn't fall through to another company.
Youngsoon? What about you? No? Okay. So I want to speak to something that I think Helen was saying earlier. In a lot of fields where women are underrepresented, a lot of them report what they call a scarcity mentality. Youngsoon, it was you. You were saying that there's a triple bill and it's you and 2 men. So it feels like there's one spot for a woman. And that's a pretty common phenomenon where it feels like there is one spot, you know, one seat at the board table or one spot on a committee that is sort of earmarked for a woman. So there is a sense that you are all competing for that one spot. And that what women in those situations tend to report is that it makes it difficult to build relationships with other women. It makes it difficult to feel supportive because instead of competing with everyone, you're actually only competing for this one little opportunity. Has that been an experience that you guys have come across?
I haven't experienced that, but I've heard a young choreographer talking to me about the fact that her director said, oh, I have that one spot for a female choreographer and it's taken. So, sorry. But it never happened to me, so I was really lucky.
Also, it never happened to me, actually.
Helen?
I don't think it's happened to me, unless, you know, no, I don't, no, it's never happened to me. In an overt way. I mean, I mean, maybe it has, but, you know, I've never experienced that, you know, bluntly.
You've never had the sense that there was one spot for a woman?
It's a hard question. It's kind of a catch-22, right? Well, it kind of is, because how do we actually know that? You know, we don't know what's going on with programming, right? I guess you can look at the evidence of the programming in the company. And another good study. I don't know who's going to do these studies, but
I think Victoria Morgan, the director of Cincinnati Ballet, has done a study to know, you know, they were like, I don't know how many premieres, 139 premieres on that year.
Oh, that's right, you're right.
And there were 9 by women, something like that. A study was made, and unfortunately, I don't have the numbers.
But, you know,
They were grim.
Yeah,
They were, yeah.
But on the other hand, look, we have a new handful of female directors in this country. You know, so let's see what happens there. And again, you know, by example, so perhaps that example will spur some, you know, the fact is that we're having this conversation about women in this particular field, but the fact is that there are many, many, many men out there that are supportive and are feminists supporting this effort as well. You know, we're not out there alone in the wind, you know, the umbrella that's turning the other way. You know, there is a lot of support across the board. I have felt that. I have had directors say to me directly, this is what we're working for. This is important. This is why. So I feel like, you know, it is happening.
Yeah.
It is happening. Yeah. And to approach it in a positive way and say, again, I'm here, I am the example, I am being supported. I am being supported right now. The three of us are. This is the reality right now. So I think that it can get distorted sometimes. And as Twyla Tharp says, I'm a choreographer. And perhaps that's what we work for. I mean, I do identify as a female in the parlance of today's time, but, you know, I'm a choreographer.
Yeah. I'm really glad you said that about men supporting this effort, because I want to ask you, what is the role of what is the responsibility and the role of men choreographers and of men artistic directors here? Because whenever I talk to them, I hear sort of vague talk about mentoring and never any sort of concrete solutions. So what do you think their responsibility is here? And I'm actually going to start with Amy.
Well, I think one thing they could do is to open up more opportunities to their company members to try choreography, which a lot of companies are already doing. Here at Tulsa, I know they do that. Ballet West also has a program each year where the dancers can step forward and work on each other. And I know several women from that company have produced work. There is a company well, actually, it's not a male director, so maybe, I don't know. But there's a company down in Texas. I've just took their notice off of our auditions page. But they have a women's choreography competition where you send in your work for emerging choreographers, and then you get to work with this company. It's called Avant Chamber Ballet down in Texas. And so I think more companies are starting to offer.
OPT now.
And OPT, they did a competition last year. Yeah. So I think that's one positive step to give dancers a chance to explore their creativity, especially classical dancers, where you know, it's not really built into our education, composition, improvisation. These are like sort of extra classes that you might be lucky to take on the side, but for the most part, classical ballet education is very focused on your dance classes. So I think that's one way that, you know, the men can can step up to be a little more sensitive to the imbalance and offer more opportunities.
Young-soon, what about you? What do you think men choreographers can do to help make their field more equitable?
My mentor is Matt Seck. He's one of the world famous choreographer, and I danced his ballets, many of his ballets, and he came to do the choreography for the Tulsa Ballet company, and he said, Young-soon, I heard you are doing very well as a choreographer. And he said, it's great. We don't have so many female choreographers. And when he said, Young-soon, go for it. And you have so much to give. And that was, for me, was just amazing. Push from him, especially a choreographer like him. And yeah, that stayed in my heart, and I want to be a good choreographer. You know, that's I started to work more with other companies. And as what Amy said, in Germany we have a lot of young choreographers evening, which the artistic director gives a chance to the dancers to do it. And like in good example in Düsseldorf Ballet Company is a big company with 46 dancers. And every end of the season, they have a young choreographer evening, and they do like 4 or 6 dancers. You apply, as we are like 3 female dancers or 3 male dancers, and they do in a big stage, opera house, for the young choreographers. They give the chance to do, you know, to explore their ideas or things. I mean, it's a wonderful, and I know Marcello does it also here in Tulsa. I think it's wonderful, because then we have more female choreographers coming out. Yeah.
Annabelle, what about you?
I don't think that male choreographers can help us. I think that directors can help any kind of young choreographer, because sometimes your stage is too big, or you only have 1 triple bill, and a full length, depending on your audiences, what they like. But you know the people around, you know the other companies. You can pick up the phone and say, I think I have a talent, and you have a company of 10 dancers, and maybe you have a spot for that person. I think that's actively, even if they cannot offer themselves something, they can find maybe the school that needs an end of year program. I mean, that's what my director did. I was injured for 5 weeks, and because I was non-active, he decided that I could choreograph for a play in Holland, because he was a friend of his, was the theater director. And so he opened a whole new world for me, just giving me that opportunity and leading me the way. Because I would never take the phone and say, hey, I can choreograph for you, So I think, yeah, that could help the visibility and the fluidity from doing a little workshop and then going to another company.
I also want to say, that each one of our designers is a woman. And that's pretty great too, right?
Were those deliberate choices, or it happened?
It happened.
I think it happened. I mean, I've worked with them at Kingsbury, where we've worked on 3 pieces. We have another 3 coming, but it wasn't a planned thing, I don't think. Yeah. So.
All right. We're going to open the floor to Q&A in a couple of minutes. So if you have some questions that you would like to ask our panelists, now is the time to start thinking about them. But my last question for you is, what advice would you give to young women or men who are thinking about the possibility of becoming a choreographer? What do you wish someone had told you when you were starting out?
No, just be courageous, but that's for any kind of artist. It's the courage, perseverance, work, practice. When you have, I don't know, a triple bill and you're not casted, instead of crying, maybe take a dancer in a free studio, try some stuff out. So you have to be proactive. You have to be more assertive. Marcello was telling me, Daniela actually was telling me that, they watch a lot of videos, but not many videos are coming from women. So maybe be proactive in, even if you're not super proud of that piece, like me sometimes, just send it. You never know that they might see a little seed of a talent or something that might interest for their company. I think that.
Yeah, tenacity. I come from a family of workers, and I think as a dancer, one of my perhaps it was even an equal joy was the work in the studio. So there's, you know, there's no shame in hard work, you know, and just staying with it and being tenacious. And what I always say also to young people is that it's between yes or no. So, you know, get comfortable with choice, and you can change your mind. You know, it's the salt or the pepper, but just be comfortable with choice. Just make a choice because you can change your mind. But if you're given an opportunity, or you think that there might be an opportunity, why not say yes? Work, you know, just put the work in. Be tenacious about it, stick with it. If you fail, you fail. But it doesn't mean that it's your last time. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I think, you know, take the risk, learn to keep taking the steps. Just keep taking the steps. And know this is a reality that you're going to hear no more than yes. Mm-hmm. And that is okay. Because, again, like the comedians, you're gonna get booed, but the point is how much do you want to do this? And I think that's an important fact. It's not that you know, you have to stay with something because you think you have to, only if you want it more than anything. And I think to instill that idea and say, well, how much do you want this? What is your responsibility in this? You know, what do you want to say? Do you have something to say? So I think just posing the questions and being, you know, also supporting in that way, but being, you know, saying, this is the road. And like the work, you know, like the research, like it.
Do you want to be a choreographer more than anything else? That's true for you?
I love what I do. I love being in the studio. I love working. I think dancers are some of the most remarkable people. And I'm not speaking about I'm speaking about the people I work with now. Mm-hmm. Are some of the most remarkable people and some of the smartest people because of the kinesthetic intelligence as well, and in the sensory intelligence. Some of the smartest people I've ever come across, in general. And I'm inspired daily by the courage and the risk I see. So I actually can't imagine not having that in my life. I am incredibly lucky to be in this profession. And I chose, I went away on purpose. I acted because I didn't want to be the default person. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm staying here because this is what I know what to do, or that I know it. And I found out I couldn't be. It had to be. I had to be with it.
It had to be dancing.
No, I had to be in the studio, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. creating something.
Yeah, that's the most fun part, is creating, not actually watching, at least for me. Watching your piece is kind of, it's done. Mm-hmm. It's not yours anymore. So it's making the piece. That's the fun part.
And coaching. I love coaching.
Mm-hmm. What about you? What's one thing, or several things, that you wish you'd known when you were starting, and what would you tell young women who want to start?
And actually, I started choreographing very late. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to dance. I want to be on stage myself. And I, as like Helen and Annabelle, I love working with the dancers. And I was coaching, like a ballet master, working with them, and I love that. And because of that, I started actually doing the choreography. And my ballet director said, why don't you work with them? Really, show them your ideas, perhaps you can make a piece. And then that's why I did the Young Choreographers Evening. I did my first piece. Mm-hmm. And it was very great because when you start working with the dancers, this creativity process is so special. I just love every single minute of it. Mm-hmm. So if any young dancers, if you're interested, go for it. They always say, if you have a chance to do something, if there's even school, even companies, young choreographers, just do it. Because if you like some music, if you have some ideas, then just explore yourself. And if perhaps it's good, perhaps it's not good, then you know it's not good, then you're not a choreographer. Or perhaps you will say, okay, perhaps I try one more time. It's just, if you don't try it, you don't know. Mm-hmm. If you don't eat it, you don't know if it's good or not. I think it's very simple as that. Mm-hmm. And I was very thankful that I started that. And as Helen said, I love my job. Mm-hmm. I love my job because of dancers, also, dancers.
So Amy, before you were editor-in-chief, you had an advice column called Ask Amy.
Yeah, I still do.
You still do,
Yeah.
pardon me. So when young women write to you saying that they want to be, or they're interested in being choreographers, what do you tell them?
Well, I have yet to get that question. First of all.
All right.
But what I would say...
If you did.
What I would say is that you don't have to be an expert to try. I think a lot of women feel, and I can't relate to this because I'm from a choreographer's point of view, but say from an editor-in-chief's point of view, I became editor-in-chief without having a whole lot of editorial experience, and it was very scary to be given that opportunity and to be told, this is yours, you can do it. And I was really freaked out because I didn't feel like I had enough knowledge to do what I needed to do. But you can figure it out on the way and learn on the way. You don't have to know everything and have all the answers in the beginning. You can take a journey and, just try to acknowledge the self-doubt. Okay, it's there, we all have it, but to just push it down and push forward. And I think that's the best advice I could give, is to just sort of lean into the fear and go for it. So.
And it looks like you all agree with that?
Yes. Lean in hard.
All right, we are going to open the floor to questions both from our live audience and from our live stream audience. What I'd like to do is switch off one from our in-person audience and one from the internet. And I do want to request that you keep your questions brief, like tweet length, if you could, so that we can get to as many of them as we can. So let's start with someone here in the audience. And we have people going around with mics who can come find you if you put your hand up.
I was wondering about your personal life, if you have spouses, children, and how does traveling or your career as a choreographer impact your family life, and how much do you get support from your family life? And the other aspect is the economic aspect. You get a steady paycheck. How do you support yourself?
No, you don't.
Okay, I'm a mother of a 14-year-old girl, and sometimes it's very hard to leave her because when I travel, I go for like 4 weeks, sometimes even 5-6 weeks. But my husband was a dancer, and now he's working at the opera house. He's not a dancer anymore, so he's very supportive. And my daughter knows that, oh, Mama, you're leaving already again. And I'm like, I'm sorry. But thank God with social media, I have Skype every morning. I say, good morning. So it's not so bad. But of course, it's hard. Sometimes I cannot take all the jobs or the offers or commissions because I want to be with my family. And so I balance it quite well. So she grows so fast. She's already 14, so she's going to leave me soon. I don't want to even think about it, but I will try to balance it very well with the family. And my husband is really supportive. And the finance is, I think it depends on how many jobs you get. But I'm a lucky one. I also teach at the school when I'm there, so I'm okay.
What about you two?
I've been married for 25 years. I have a wonderful spouse, very supportive. He was the technical director of Frankfurt Ballet, so also in the field. And we speak about the time away, and we also Skype every day. And the time we have together, we're really together, and he supports it. He knows that he's happy that I love what I do. And I support him. He used to also go away for his work, and we visit each other as much as we can. And as far as supporting myself, I'm an artist who's lucky enough to live by my art. So it's working out so far.
Was that always true, or did it take time for you to
It took time. Yeah. It took time. The transition period, I don't know about you guys, but I had a 3.5-year transition period from really finding my own feet after I retired from being a dancer. That was a tough time. But
Yeah, as a beginning choreographer is really very poor.
Yeah.
Because you have from, at least in Europe, you earn every month a salary, and suddenly you earn every 8 months something. Then you have to pay taxes, and because you're independent, you have to pay a lot of things by yourself, and your pension, retirement money,
you do,
all that thing. So, you eat a little bit more canned food or tin food.
She didn't say cat food.
No,
She said canned food.
Do you want to speak to the question about travel and
travel?
family?
Yes, I travel a lot. I have a spouse that understands that. I mean, he's more workaholic than I am. He's an actor and a theater director. And basically for us, choreographing or creating something is the child in us is so happy. So we just want to be children the whole time. And we both know it's not going to be forever. So, the taste of the month, and then it might pass. And so you have to, as long as I get invited and I'm allowed to show my work and be in the studio with dancers, I'll say yes, because I know at one point there's a younger choreographer that will come and take my spot. So.
All right, can we do a live stream question?
Yes.
All right.
So we have a question from Britton in Seattle. And Britton asked, have you noticed or do you feel there are visual differences the audience can pick up on in pieces choreographed by women as opposed to men?
That would be an answer that maybe Marcello can answer. Because, we're used to our work.
Yeah. Yes.
So, Marcello, you had male choreographers evening and female choreographers. What's the difference?
Artistic director Marcello Angelini, everybody.
It's interesting because this is the question that you ladies are answering with this program. I always wondered if we had a program totally created by female choreographers, what would be the difference? And I saw the difference the first time we did a run-through of this program.
Because we were all fierce?
The intensity of the works and the dramatic content is way off the charts. I am loving every moment of it, and I thank you for producing 3 fantastic works.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, another audience question? Yeah, got some hands. Oh,
there.
Over here? Yeah.
Regarding your European experience, do you find that there is any difference in approach or style or how the dancers react from a European troupe versus American?
Yes, I feel there is. I mean, in Europe you have more time than in the States to create work. So I would say Americans are much faster learning the steps. They're more focused. They go full on all the time. And in Europe, not so. Mondays, it's Monday. Tuesday is good. Wednesday, that's when you're sore. Thursday, it's almost the end of the week. Friday, can we just get that happy hour drink? I mean, and I don't feel that in American companies. It's like, we're here to work, and we're generous, and it's only 2 weeks, and let's go for it. And that's really, I love it.
I agree, 100%.
So the work gets done on Tuesdays.
In Europe, on Tuesday we work. I mean, we have more weeks there, and so it's a bit more scattered. Here, we were given 6 hours a day for 5 days for 2 weeks, and in Europe you'll have 2.5 months, but it's with La Bayadère and Hansmann, and so it's a little harder to have the focus of your dancers on your work. That's concentrated in that longer period. So you'll have very good days and some days that you think, what did I just do? I just walked on one spot.
Mm-hmm. And the great thing about it here is that we have as Annabelle said, five days a week, but just for myself. I can just concentrate on my work and the dancers. So my creation process goes very fast.
Yeah.
Because they're all there or involved 100%. And so sometimes my piece was finished in 7 days. So which went like, the dancers are great. Dancers are amazing dancers they have here. If I ask something and they're already there. So it's amazing.
you can't take your job for granted in the United States. The way
No.
the system is set up, it's, you know, you have a contract for a year, and then it's up, and they might renew it, they might not, and then it's so hard to find another job.
As a dancer.
Yes, that it affects the way you work. You know, you're very all in all the time.
Because you know that 3 months from now,
Yeah.
you'll be up for review. And
Yeah, I think it makes a difference in how American dancers approach their work. Dancers in American companies, I guess.
Right. Let's take another live stream question, and then, yes, I see you, Miss, in the orange shirt.
Well, I think we have a very shy online audience because we're not getting many questions, so we're trying to convince them to come out of their shell and ask some more questions, but maybe we'll take another one here.
Sure, we have one down here.
You all mentioned having strong male support, but have you ever been like openly challenged, not for your ability really, but just the fact that you're a woman by either other writers or directors or even other choreographers?
I mean, like Baryshnikov said, I'm my biggest competition. I'm my biggest critic. So, yeah, I don't know. It's you know, the competition is with me, and you know, I can be very disappointed with what I see, or very happy, pleasantly surprised. But that's part of you know, growing as an artist. And I said, you know, I try to see positively that I did have the courage and I did put it out there. That's the biggest challenge and support of myself. That, you know, because often, especially in America, you have a Balanchine work. Well, he isn't there anymore. And then you have an existing work. So somebody comes and set the work, and then you're the only existing or living choreographer. So you're there by yourself. You can't, you know, go have a drink with your fellow choreographers and say, so, how do you go today? So you have to find that support and challenge within yourself.
What about the rest of you? Ever been openly challenged?
Well, I think that, again, you can choose to gravitate and see that kind of thing, or you can choose to stay focused and say, la, 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 I have a job to do. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, I think that is in any field, whether you're male or female, I think that that's always going to be there. And it's whether or not you want to go down the road and be a part of the gossip or, you know, get into it. It's a waste of time. And time is precious. Stay focused on what you want to do and let all the other voices go. Because you know what? A lot of the time they're doing that because they're insecure. And that's a good thing to remember, you know?
I won't repeat it because she said exactly what I think.
Right. Amy?
Have I been
Openly challenged?
for being a woman editor? I don't think so.
At a ballet magazine?
No.
Fair enough. You told me
maybe not publicly, maybe privately, someone saying, "Oh, that woman." But I don't know. Not to my recollection. I don't think anyone's ever challenged my gender in my job position.
All right. We have a couple of hands down here, and yep, go ahead.
Have any of you ever seen a young dancer, like even in high school, or like a new young millennial ever do any piece of choreography? And if you were to, what would you like say, or would you ever like to go see one?
Is one speaking about oneself?
Yeah, like without joining a company, have you ever seen a choreography that has never done ballet or professionally?
So have you ever seen choreography by someone who doesn't have ballet training? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Marcos Moro, he's a Spanish choreographer. Well, choreographer, he's a theater director.
And he has his dancer, choreograph and improvise the whole thing, but his vision is incredible. So yes, it happens that sometimes you are, you just are there as a tool to get that idea that he has in his head. So it does happen.
I've seen kids, they're in dance programs, but they might not be ballet majors, that have choreographed really good solos or pieces, and I encourage them to go to the second companies, or where I help them see where they could submit their stuff, perhaps. Something like that. Is that what you mean? Okay.
Another. Oh, we have an online one. Bring it.
Oh, we have an online.
So this is Joshua from Tulsa.
Why isn't he here?
I don't know. Joshua, where are you? He asked, as a female choreographer, do you find any difference between choreographing for women and for men? In other words, is it easier to choreograph for women versus men?
No.
It's always hard. Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't think there's a difference. I like choreographing for both.
I prefer choreographing for men, but that's because I'm a contemporary dancer. So I just like to be in the ground. And then for women, so that's how I started here. I made the duets without pointe shoes and the phrases without pointe shoes. And then a couple of days later, I said, okay, let's put them on. Because I didn't want to be distracted thinking, okay, and piqué arabesque, and another piqué arabesque, and bourrée, So, yeah, it is, men, I move closer to what men do than women on point. On point.
I like to work. I like to work more with male dancers. So I like grounded work. And also when I work with the female, especially with like this piece, also what I did for the company, I have to bring them down like heavy. Yeah, I like them to feel the ground. So with ballet, classical ballet is very up, everything. And what I did was more contemporary work. So.
And there is a difference.
Yes.
I mean, a male dancer is not so afraid of making a mistake, and a female dancer will feel, afraid. She wants to be perfect. She wants to be liked. I hope that I do well. And sometimes in the mistakes, there are much more interesting, variations of a step coming out. So yeah, that's sometimes there's that.
Some female dancers, something I have to say, yeah, make noise, like go, yeah, open yourself, go, say something, scream. And they go, they go like this, I don't hear it, yeah, I have to try them to open themselves. Because male, they're open. But the female, that's when they open, sometimes you will be surprised how they can be.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
She's ready.
You ready?
She's ready. She almost she read my body language, but I was holding it in. I don't find that. I love pointe shoes, and the work that I did, we had to be grounded, or we were on the ground. I mean, we worked at such an idea of off balance. So my experience with pointe shoes is. They're just another extension. They're the foot. It's actually, I treat it as an extra bonus, because it's another level or another idea of what balance can be, the precarious nature of balance, and I mean in life in general. But on these pointe shoes, it adds to that, and that's something I find thrilling, and that can't happen in a flat shoe.
Yeah.
And so I love choreographing on women and men, but I think it's because I had such a good experience in the shoes, and it wasn't, for me, even though I was classically trained, it was a different experience I had as a ballet dancer in pointe work. It was not, you were constantly scared. No, but I mean in the best way, because your balance was constantly being challenged by the work. And then you got used to it. You got used to being, in a place that was off, and then that place that was, let's say, off balance or off kilter became the exciting place to discover, and therefore you learned more about your body. So I love choreographing on pointe and for women, and I love choreographing for men for that grounded thing as well. But I feel you can be grounded in the shoe as well, in your pointe shoe.
And Annabelle, I've heard you say that there are just things you can do. There are sort of sliding floor things that you can do in pointe shoes.
Allows
that you,
more things, and then the turns are much faster. So that effect is very nice.
Good question, Joshua. I wish you were here. All right, who's next?
Regina has a question.
This
Regina has a question.
Oh.
Regina.
One of you mentioned that you each have female designers. And I don't know what that terminology, I don't know what a designer is.
Oh, costume designer.
Thank you.
Costume designer, yeah. Costume and or
set
set.
designer.
Yeah.
Yes.
In your experience of creating new work with dancers, have you then yourself found that you were the inspiration for an emerging choreographer?
What is the question?
Yeah.
Have you ever been the inspiration for an emerging choreographer?
During your process of working with working with
Have you
dancers?
affected someone you've worked with to?
Yeah, I get a lot the
That's
joke.
a great question.
Annabelle, when I'm grown up, I want to be you. And then my answer is like, well, choreography is not just studio time. You're on the road, by yourself. You live in a suitcase. You basically have 3 outfits.
Yeah, but one of them is this outfit. Like
Tulsa shoes.
Tulsa shoes.
I mean,
but you come in countries you don't that speak they speak another language. Culture clash. I mean, I was in Cuba 4 times. The roaches, the fact that there are no tomatoes on the island. I mean, you have to deal, with that. So sometimes, you are the. I always say you don't have to be someone else. You have to be you. So you can be a catalysator for a young choreographer to aspire to be that, but they shouldn't aspire to be you.
Mm-hmm. What about you two? Do you know that there are sort of careers that you've inspired to launch?
I don't know. Hopefully, yeah.
Who is next?
Regina.
Because our upcoming program of Creations in Studio K is celebrating female choreographers, did that influence your creation process on the dancers here?
This is one of the Tulsa Ballet dancers who just asked this question, by the way.
Who's in every piece? No.
If the fact that we were sharing a female evening did that inspire you for the subject? Is that it? No, not really.
Did it affect your creative process?
No.
Not at all.
All right. We had one hand down here, and then
we have a lot of hands.
Yeah.
So, having a home with a lot of times the young ballerinas are improvising there at home, and I want to know, what is your process? Do you guys have a theme, or are there steps you prefer? Is it the music? Obviously, partly, but I mean, do you guys have personality styles of how you actually choreograph?
The work always starts outside the studio for me. Music is usually first, or if I'm working with narrative, then it's narrative and music. When I first started out, I made phrases and brought them into the studio and would start there, so I'd have some phrase work. Like I said, I do a lot of research before I come, a lot of writing on it, but I wait to see the dancers in the studio. I wait to see the personalities now before I create phrase work. I have ideas about what the music is telling me to do, or the inspiration I'm getting by, like I said, the narrative or the music. But I wait to see the dancers in front of me, because I really believe in each personality. Because I think as an audience member, which is what I am now, I am inspired by the people I see on stage, and I want to see the individuals. So I wait for that moment in the studio to get a sense of who these people are, and work with them a few days, and then very often that movement is also born from their styles and my style mixed together with the research I've done before.
For me, it's a little different. I am very theme-driven, so I put myself a theme that is out of some kind of biographical or something I saw, something I have an opinion about. And that theme dictates what kind of movements I want to do for that piece. So a lot of my pieces are very different. Because I feel that as a choreographer, if I would repeat myself, that would be for me the end of creativity. So the theme is kind of the parameter of the movement that I will play with. And of course, you come to a company, so I don't prepare steps. But I come to a company, I improvise in front of them, they learn very fast. And then I have always the beginning of the piece, so the first image. I always know what that's going to be. And that's like, 20 seconds of your ballet. And then the rest, I see what happens in the studio every day and, who shows up, who gets injured. It's that, sometimes or somebody makes a mistake or is standing there, I'm like, that's beautiful, and that's standing there. Or, so they almost dictate what the piece becomes. So that's why I always say, once the piece is finished, it's not mine. This is a Tulsa Ballet piece, because if I would make that same theme at the Washington Ballet, it would have been a totally different piece.
For me, it takes a long time to find the right music, and I go for my theme also, very important. And normally I don't find the theme very far away from me. I find it around me. And like good example, my piece is called If. This time, it's just a simple question, which everybody questioned themselves. If I have done that, if I met this person, if I was her. And so this theme was for me very special. So I wanted to make a piece, and I love this composer. Ezio Bossa. He's an Italian composer. I love his music, so I said, well, that matches perfectly. And then I prepare quite a lot. I have to say, I prepare quite a lot because we have such a short time, and especially I like tell the stories. I'm a more storyteller. Most of my ballets are telling the stories. And so I have a theme each section. Then I prepare what I would like to do. Sometimes I prepare some steps. I do, especially group scenes. Like when I have I have 11 men or 8 men. Then I prepare some steps, because then I get the style. Then when I get into the studio, then I work with those steps beginning, and then I start to create with the dancers. So I have basic or prepared when I come. But this time I have to say I had a less prepared, because I know how good the Tulsa Ballet is. And I create a lot, I think more like 80% in the studio. Just men's dance, I had to prepare, I know, because it's very fast and a lot of steps. So I prepared that, otherwise it's all Tulsa Ballet's work. So that's how I work.
Any other questions?
So obviously, you're very creative and capable dancers and choreographers. If you weren't choreographing today, what would you be doing?
I love editing movies, but that has to do again with choreography and rhythm, so and images. So that was what I wanted to do when I started as a choreographer. If it doesn't work out, I give myself 5 years, then I'll go to the Film Academy.
Right. I'd be a writer.
Right.
Oh, right. Right, but I would write. I was like, why are they laughing? What's wrong with writing? No, I'd be a writer. I've always wanted to do that.
I will stay in a ballet. I love ballet, and I love teaching. I love coaching. So probably if I then I would be a ballet master, and I love teaching students. I love this whole give and take from the kids and how they develop. I love that. So probably a teacher or a ballet master, yes.
And Amy, what about you?
Well, I don't know. I think I really like furniture.
Right on. Did not see that coming.
No, sometimes if I've told a few people, like, if I could do it again, I might go back and, in a new life, maybe study art history with like a design furniture focus. I like antiques. I don't know.
Awesome.
There are a lot of things I like to do. I think my absolute dream job would be to be a principal character artist in ballet company. I think that's the best job ever because...
Can you tell the audience what that means?
So when you go and see Sleeping Beauty and there's a king and a queen and they don't really dance, but they project and they act and they don't really have to stress. They might have to stress out over like the wig, right, not falling over or whatever. But you still get to be in the studio and you still get to perform, but there's like, you don't have the stress of actually dancing.
Or wearing pointe shoes. They're usually wearing like pretty little shoes.
Act and be, like that is my fantasy life.
You might trip. That was like
I know.
those big dresses. I'm like, I've seen people. I'm going to trip up those stairs. I know it. Those stairs.
Like if someone offered, like emailed me and offered me that, I'd be like, I'm doing it. I don't know. I just think that would be the most fun job in the world.
It does look like a really fun job. There are wigs involved. There are great costumes and awesome makeup involved with no pointe shoes.
No.
All right.
That might be an antique store.
Or run an antique store. Any other questions?
Good. Oh.
All right. We're going to make this our last question. Unless do we have any more live stream ones coming in? Okay.
Except Tristan said, Amy, go for it.
I probably know that guy.
All right. I want to get to your question in one second, but seeing as you're going to go for it because Tristan said so, what is the dream character, actor?
Caraboss. Totally.
I was just going to say that.
All right, evil fairy.
Dream.
So, company directors here over the world, you've heard?
We have your Caraboss right here. All right, let's hear it.
Say you're working on a piece that includes dance, but you have no dance experience. What are some big do's and don'ts when it comes to working with dancers and choreographers to get that vision out?
Get some dance experience. I'm not kidding. Like, educate yourself a bit on it, to see if you can work with someone for a while, to learn the craft a bit. Great.
Any other advice?
No, that's good. Learn your tool.
Yeah. Tulsa Ballet has adult ballet classes. Just apropos of nothing. Is there anything else? Are there any last questions? This is your last chance. Anything? No? Is there anything else you want to add? Is there anything else you want to tell these
Go Tulsa Ballet.
Go Tulsa Ballet. All right. That's an absolutely perfect place to leave it. So we're gonna end the live stream. Live stream audience, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed it. And in-house audience, we invite you to join us up here on the stage for